Welcome, my friend. Come in and make yourself comfortable by the fire. I'm embarrassed that my butler wasn't able to meet you at the gate. I'm afraid we'll be supping alone this evening. It's Brimstoke's night to howl. Please forgive the minor theatrics. I simply can't resist a good scare. Frankly, my friend, these affected atmospherics, as startling as they can be, grow rather pale in the light of the story I am about to reveal. You have asked for the truth about Dracula, the monster most feared, whose restless soul has haunted generations. I must warn you, however, the truth about Dracula, about Vlad the Impaler, the great undead, is not for the timid. But my manners. Apologies, dear friend. Something to relieve a parched throat, perhaps. White? Red? Good. Like the tightly locked door at the top of the darkened stairway in the classic horror movies, Dracula's legend stands before us, daring us to investigate. I, like you, have always been fascinated with Dracula. The curiosity that brings you here tonight led me to ask the same questions. Why has the Dracula legend intrigued us so many generations? Could it be his triumph over mortality? His hypnotic power over victims, the elegance of this gentleman killer, or the sheer thrill of being scared to death? Well, perhaps all of these elements combined have made Dracula the most popular character in the history of horror, inspiring hundreds of writers and filmmakers. But I caution you to approach this evening with more respect than one would have for an ordinary fictional character. For there is more truth than fiction in the story of Vlad Dracula. Though a legend surrounds him, I assure you that such a man actually lived over 400 years ago in the mountains of Transylvania, a very real country in the heart of Europe. Here, in fact, in this town of Shigashiwara, the real Dracula, Vlad Dracula, began a legend that would endure the centuries. A brass plaque still announces the fact to passers-by. In this house, Vlad Dracula was born. And now the truth, my friend. Travel back with me to 15th century Transylvania. Those were turbulent times for Transylvania and for its neighboring region, Wallachia, which was ruled by Dracul, the father of Dracula. It was the height of the bloody and brutal holy wars, and the Islamic Turks had sworn to wipe out Christianity. This made the Turks mortal enemies of Vlad's people. For many of his teenage years, Vlad was held captive by the Turks. When his father was murdered by dissenters in his own country, young Vlad, less than 20 years old, escaped and joined troops on a crusade against his enemies. Within a few years, he had led several successful missions and was rewarded by his people with the same title his father had held, Crown Prince of Wallachia. Thus began a rise to power unlike any other in history. Vlad first decided to assert his newfound power within his own country. He issued proclamations from his long table with a clear message for the boyars: submit or die. Innocence was a question decided by only one man, Vlad Dracula. In one day, some 500 nobles were impaled on stakes in the hills surrounding the city. Few dared to stand up against him again. From then on, Dracula was known as Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler. And within a very short time, Dracula was undeniably the leader of his people. Secure in his own region, Dracula now turned towards Transylvania with an army 20,000 strong. The warning sounds were sent out. Vlad Tepes is coming. Vlad the Impaler is on the attack. No one knew where or when he would strike, but the tales of his tortures preceded him. In a papal letter sent to the Vatican, his atrocities were described. He killed some by breaking them under the wheels of carts. Others, stripped of their clothes, were skinned alive. Others placed upon stakes or roasted on red-hot coals. Others punctured with stakes, piercing their heads, their breasts, their buttocks, and the middle of their entrails, with the stake emerging from their mouths. The Transylvanians tried to take refuge behind the secure walls of monasteries, but nothing could stop the bloodthirsty Vlad Dracula. It was during this time that this famous scene occurred, with Vlad dining at a table amongst the impaled bodies of his countless victims. By late 1461, Dracula, unquestionably in command of his homeland, decided to do battle with his old enemies, the Turks. In a series of surprise raids, and with the advanced stories of his treacherous ways spreading panic throughout the Turkish forces, Vlad secured victory after victory. Within an amazingly short period of time, he had achieved the impossible. Leaving a bloody trail of conquered Turkish villages behind them, Vlad and his troops reached the Black Sea. This was a highly symbolic accomplishment, and those who choose to remember only those victories still call Vlad Dracula a hero. But Dracula's success was short-lived. Taking the matter somewhat more seriously, the Turkish Sultan sent 200,000 troops into Transylvania. Against these odds, Dracula was forced to retreat towards Wallachia. He had no choice but to return to his castle, but Vlad wasn't alone. The Sultan sent a battery of troops after him, and Dracula's mighty castle was destroyed. Dracula, however, escaped through a secret tunnel with a few friends and fled to Hungary. 12 years later, Vlad Dracula was finally killed by the Turks at this spot, Snagov. The Sultan ordered that Vlad's head be returned to him as proof of his demise. The monks at Snagov buried Dracula's headless body in their monastery. Some say he lives on. Truthfully, I am appalled at the treatment dealt him at the hands of today's Western culture. It must sadden him to be reduced to a mathematical puppet for preschoolers, a gaudy waxen caricature in cheap chambers of horrors. Why, his name has even been associated with a sugar-saturated breakfast cereal. This is an insult to Vlad the Impaler, hero to his people, and the very image of Satan to his enemies. The true, terrifying history of Dracula is found in no less a shrine than the British Museum. This in itself stands as a tribute to this master politician, statesman, warrior, and all-round benevolent dictator. Of course, every head of state has been prone to excess, and every head of state has his own peculiar tastes, whether for jelly beans, peanuts, or blood. 400 years after his death, Dracula found new life. It was Bram Stoker, an Irish novelist, who first introduced the Dracula legend to English literature. His research into the historical Vlad Dracula was painstaking, if you'll permit the pun. It was Stoker who changed Vlad from a bloodthirsty prince to a bloodthirsty vampire. Listen to Stoker's vivid description of a first meeting with the Count in his 1897 novel, Dracula. The driver suddenly turned down a narrow road, which turned sharply to the right. Soon we were hemmed in with trees, which in places arched right over the roadway, till we passed as though through a tunnel. Just then, the moon, sailing through the black clouds, appeared behind the jagged crest of a beetling, pine-clad rock. And by its light, I saw around us a ring of wolves with white teeth and lolling red tongues, with long, sinewy limbs and shaggy hair. All at once, the wolves began to howl. The horses jumped about and reared, and we kept on ascending. Suddenly, I was conscious of the fact that the driver was in the act of pulling up the horses in the courtyard of a vast, ruined castle, from whose tall black windows came no ray of light. Kind of a place had I come to, and among what kind of people? I heard a heavy step approaching behind the great door and saw through the chinks the gleam of a coming light. Then there was the sound of rattling chains and the clanking of massive bolts drawn back. A key was turned with the loud grating noise of long disuse, and the great door swung back. Within stood a tall old man, clad in black from head to foot, without a single speck of color about him anywhere. The old man motioned me in with his right hand with a courtly gesture, saying in excellent English, but with a strange intonation, "Welcome to my house. Enter freely and of your own will." He made no motion of stepping to meet me, but stood like a statue, as though his gesture of welcome had fixed him into stone. The instant, however, that I had stepped over the threshold, he moved impulsively forward. I said interrogatively, "Count Dracula?" He bowed in a courtly gesture as he replied, "I am Dracula. I bid you welcome. It is late and my people are not available. Let me see to your comfort myself." Well, from your expression, I can see that Dracula still isn't real to you. Well, can you begin to believe it? Can you imagine, for instance, that Bram Stoker's Castle Dracula might have existed? Well, it did. To ensure the strength of his reign, once and for all, Dracula used Easter, the most sacred of Orthodox holidays, as a trap. He encouraged a festive gathering of nobles and peasants on Easter morning, and then surrounded and captured them all. The old and sick were impaled and placed like fence posts around the city, while the young, healthy citizens were taken, still in their Easter costumes, and forced to work on the construction of Castle Dracula. They were fed as little as possible and worked until the clothes fell off their backs. No one knows how many years the construction took. No one knows how many died. He had built a perfect retreat, closer to Transylvania, in a difficult spot to attack. Deep in the Carpathian Mountains, perched securely on a lofty crag, lies Castle Dracula. Today it stands in ruin, silent save for the moaning wind that echoes through its silhouetted majesty. One can only imagine the height of its battlements and the depth of its secrets. Oh yes, Castle Dracula was real, and to the Transylvanians so were vampires. The ornate frescoes on these old Transylvanian church walls tell the story of vampirism. According to tradition, should a man change his religion from Eastern Orthodox to Roman Catholicism, as Vlad Dracula did, he was excommunicated and upon death became a vampire. These drawings are vivid in detail, depicting the restless souls of the undead rising out of their graves. So, the legend has some basis in fact. The potential of such rich drama was quickly discovered by a young, booming film industry, both in Europe and Hollywood. The Dracula legend found new life in 1922 with the release of a German film entitled Nosferatu. Now, director Friedrich Murnau unfortunately could not secure the necessary copyrights from Mr. Stoker, so he changed things slightly. Transylvania became the Baltic states, Count Dracula became Count Orlok, but essentially Nosferatu was the first of over 200 movies to contribute to Dracula lore. I have a copy of the film ready in the viewing room. Would you care to have a look at Dracula's first starring role? Oh, good. They just don't make them like this anymore. And it's a good thing, too. The actor is Max Schreck. His Count Orlok bears little resemblance to the elegant devils of later Hollywood and London versions. Though vampire stories had been translated to the screen as early as 1909, this film was an adaptation of Stoker's novel and is considered the first Dracula vampire movie. Even today, Nosferatu remains a masterpiece of horror. I just love a good romance. Kind of brings a lump to the throat, doesn't it? But the story gets better with every telling, as each element is added to the tale. The fangs, the black silk cape, the hypnotic eyes, even the myth that a vampire casts no reflection in a mirror. The vampire Dracula is a development of the ancient legends, and it's surprising how many similarities exist between the blood-sucking undead of Dracula's time and the modern fictionalized vampire of today. There are the common, well-known myths, of course. Should one wish to remain totally prepared in case of vampire attack, I have assembled a small vampire emergency kit. Oh, yes. Here is the first item, garlic. And pungent it is. The mere presence of this deliciously smelly herb will keep away the vampire, and for that matter, anyone else except a very dedicated apprentice chef. Now, the Transylvanians used to smear the fresh-cut cloves of garlic about their doorways and window sashes. The cross, of course, has always been the absolute power over vampires. Its shape has defended many a film star from the fangs of Dracula. And here is the traditional wooden stake. Though it may seem to be a movie cliche, the wooden stake has more than a literary association with vampires, as I will later explain. Now, here are two tiny little bandages, just the right size. Guess you know what they're for. Now, this is something you may not have seen. It is a small replica of a tawaka. The real thing is much bigger, of course, and when struck, the very sound of it scares off every vampire within hearing distance. Now, I'm no expert, of course, so perhaps a proper demonstration would be in order. In Romania, the sounding of the tawaka is a ritual performed by the priests several times each day. Now, should you not succeed in scaring off the vampire, you must certainly destroy it at the earliest opportunity. There are specific instructions as to how to accomplish this. They are given in Romanian, so please allow me to translate. We bury the vampires away outside the village, up in the mountains by themselves, or at a crossroads far away from here. Nobody is safe from the vampire. So whenever strange things happen, you suspect right away that it's a vampire. The first thing to do is to go out and look at the graves in the cemetery. You look for freshly turned dirt or some other sign that a grave has been disturbed. You have to do this during the day. Vampires aren't dangerous during the day, only at night. That's when they come out to suck people's blood and make them sick and put a curse on people. So you go out to the cemetery in the daytime. If you see signs, you have to open up the grave and kill them. In some places, they kill a vampire by cutting off its head. The surest way to kill a vampire is by driving a stake through his heart. The stake has to be driven right through the vampire's body into the ground. But if you don't find him and kill him, he remains undead. Vampires are no quaint legend, nor is Dracula a theatrical character created through actors and special effects. No, he is terribly real. Certainly, Hollywood has contributed much to the Western image of the Count. Many great men have played Dracula on the stage and screen. Most of them were my friends, though I somehow never had the opportunity to play the King of Evil. Maybe it's just as well. There are many classic film portrayals which have mixed fact with fantasy to create the popular image of Count Dracula. Over the years, many vampire movies have featured female vampires, but none compares with the nightmarish Vampire, directed by Carl Dreyer in 1932. In this artistically acclaimed film, Dreyer presents his vampire as an ugly, old, witch-like woman. The horror is further enhanced by Dreyer's imaginative use of the camera. Such techniques as shooting through gauze to create a dreamlike haze are still used by filmmakers to this day. This 1936 Dracula sequel, Mark of the Vampire, incorporated all the classic elements. The spooky castle, the cobwebs, the dim candlelight, the eerie music, the pretty young girl, and of course, the most famous of all the Hollywood Draculas, Bela Lugosi.
By day, the vampires must return to the ground in which they were buried, or else find shelter in some accursed retreat. It is then they are powerless.
Then we must leave at daybreak. It's our chance to get away from here.
What? And leave these monsters here to continue their work of destruction? It would be cowardice.
What else is there to do?
Search for them. Find their corpse-like bodies. It is in that state, and that state only, they can be destroyed. Their heads must be severed with one clean stroke and a sprig of bat-thorn placed within the gaping wound.
They would be crazy to attempt what you are planning. I'll never do it. Never. In the morning we're leaving. I agree with you.
Mark of the Vampire starred some very famous actors. Yes, that is Lionel Barrymore.
In 3 hours, it will be daylight. Thank heaven the house is well protected for the night.
Ah, the classic Dracula pose, but not the classic ending.
This vampire business has given me a great idea for a new act. Luna, his new act, I will be the vampire. Did you watch me? I gave all of me. I was greater than any real vampire.
Sure. But get off your makeup.
Yes, and help me with some of this packing.
They have to shove this breaking job onto me.
As the film industry progressed, so did the vampire story. In this 1943 production, Return of the Vampire, Bela Lugosi played a vampire who had been buried in London and was brought back to life by a World War II air raid.
There's that blasted spike sticking out of his chest.
You know, it ain't right for a man to be buried decent and proper like, and then go and get hurt by a blooming bomb splint. That spike's got to come out before we bury him again. Horace, pull it out yourself.
Chicken-hearted is what you are.
Oh. What's that? Come on, Horace. Let's bury him and get it over with.
With his lifelong servant, a werewolf named Andreas, Lugosi plotted his steps towards immortality.
Lady Jane Ainsley and Professor Walter Saunders imprisoned me, deprived me of life for the past 23 years. It was my curse.
Posing as an escaped German doctor, the vampire chose his victim carefully.
Lady Jane,
How will you do it, Master?
through those she loves the most. Come, Andreas. I must find a new resting place. There you will bring the coffin with my native soil. And then, Andreas,
I've seen sick men before. Now, I know about men.
Perhaps the most unwilling vampire in film history was John Beale as Dr. Beecher in the 1957 movie simply entitled The Vampire.
You told me yourself these pills were from vampire bats.
Exactly, but Paul, that doesn't make you another Dracula. You found a strong suggestive influence there, that's all.
You think so?
It's my opinion you need a complete rest.
Well, you're wrong, Will.
Look, Paul, people depend on you here. I don't want to see you destroy your life. It's a useful life, Paul. I don't want to see you destroy it over an hallucination like this.
No hallucination.
But suppose it is. Look, suppose you confess to that killing last night. Paul, you'll never be able to pick up your work here again. It's a small town, Paul. It's a small town. People...
Delving into the world of science fiction rather than straight horror, The Vampire tells the story of a doctor who unintentionally takes vampire pills.
11?
Yeah, that seems to be the hour. That's as long as I can go without the pills.
Now, nonsense. All right, Paul, I'll keep you from taking the pills. Now, you can trust me. I'll stay with you until 11 o'clock.
So I'm right, there is a killer. How'd he do it?
Well, it seems that this maniac extracts a small amount of blood from his victims' throats. And then, because he carries the disease virus in his saliva, he transmits it to them. But for some reason, he remains immune himself.
Oh, come on, Will. Help me. I gotta have him. I can't do it. I can't wait like this. Can't you see what's happening to me?
I can't see any different except your state of mind. Now, try to bear it just a little longer.
Oh, I can't. You gotta help me.
Look, I'm going to give you the sedative, Paul, in just a few minutes.
I need it now. Please. Please. Oh, please.
Doomed to taking lives by night and saving them by day. Ah, the dramatic irony. Having accidentally attained immortality, this pathetic character wants more than anything to die and to end his nightmare. In 1961, actor Francis Lederer had his chance to portray the Prince of Darkness in Curse of Dracula, also called Return of Dracula. This time, the vampire comes to America for his evil pursuits. Using the name of Balak Gordal, he presents himself to the unsuspecting family of Cora Maybury, claiming that he is her long-lost cousin from Eastern Europe.
The cross is my enemy, Rachel. Take it off. Take off the cross, Rachel, then we can speak. I must speak with you.
What?
The cross. You will do as I say.
Yes.
Obviously influenced by Bela Lugosi, Lederer is careful not to carry the resemblance too far, choosing a simple, dark business suit for his vampire attire.
Are you afraid?
No.
I bring you the darkness of centuries past and centuries to come. Eternal life and eternal death. Now do you fear?
Get up, will you, Rachel? Gotta help Mom finish making the costume.
Out of the way.
No. No, you must listen to me. You must listen to what I say. You shall not leave. You are bound to me. You shall die as you are bidden to die.
Get out of the way! Ah! Ah! Look, honey, he's gone.
Ah, the imagination of the filmmaker. And who better in this age of cinematic miracles to perpetuate the evils of Vlad Dracula? But in this, as in all things, truth is stranger than fiction. From Bram Stoker down to today's characterizations of the prince, none has ever succeeded in even approaching the horrible truth of Vlad the Impaler. Even our most famous portrayals of Dracula fall short of the terror expressed in a 15th century portrait of the real Vlad Dracula. The artist is unknown, and so is his fate. Now you know what captured Bram Stoker's imagination. You understand the significance of Dracula and the wooden stake. Why little children in Romania are warned to be good, or Dracula will get them. Much more influential than the threat that Santa might not bring a gift, don't you think? But there is much more you don't yet understand, more strange truths you have yet to hear. What could be stranger than the truth of Dracula's past, Dracula's present? To the people of Romania, still isolated from the modern world, Dracula and his legend live on. The stories play an important part in their lives. You see, my friend, Dracula does exist today. Where? Where else? In Transylvania. You seem to scoff at the truth. I beg you, do not leap to conclusions until you have heard the whole story. For stranger things are still to come to a remote village in the Carpathian Mountains of Transylvania. Not 15th century Transylvania, when Vlad Dracula led his bloodthirsty raids, but Transylvania today, where his legend still lives on. Here, a man has died. His body lies in state in his home, awaiting the funeral tomorrow morning. And outside, the villagers have gathered to perform an exorcism, an age-old ritual complete with wailing and fires and homemade masks to ward off evil, to ward off the vampires. To these villagers, this is a serious, one could say, life or death matter. If they succeed, the soul of their friend will leave his body and rise to heaven. If not, he could become a vampire, joining the great undead, destined to return and promote evil in their community. One double-sided mask shows the effigy of the historical decapitated Dracula on one side and the traditional vampire with hollow eyes, pale skin, and bloodied mouth on the other. Dracula, the great undead. By the first light of morning, fear dwindles, but not precaution. Every care is taken to prepare the man's grave properly. In the graveyard, markers tell the story of how others in the village died. Here we see how this shepherd was murdered and then decapitated so that the victim could never come back to haunt his murderer. Such traditions still prevail. To these people, there is no greater fear than the fear of the undead returning. A hole is cut in the sheet covering the corpse. The lid of the wedge-shaped coffin is carefully laid on top, but no nails hold it in place. The grave is shallow.
Al Fiului și al Sfântului Duh, acum și pururea și în vecii vecilor. Amin.
These procedures make it easier for the villagers to detect any signs of unnatural life. Should anything around the grave be disturbed, they will see it and react accordingly. One can never be sure. Despite the greatest precautions, a person may be destined to become a vampire. And so it is that these creatures lurk in the villages of Romania, or so the peasants believe. And that's why their ritual extends past the cemetery into their daily life. As everyone knows, vampires hate garlic. So all that is precious to these people is protected by this herb. The livestock, and of course, the home. All possible entrances are covered. The windows and doors, even the chimney and keyholes. One can't be too well protected. The ceremonial mask reveals the two faces of Dracula, uniting two legends, the hero of Romania, the crusader, and the vampire, the great undead. Silly superstitions? Well, many have thought so. And many have attempted to disprove the legends through more practical and physical evidence of the life of Dracula. As you have seen, the historical proof of the existence of this prince of blood has served mostly to substantiate the legend of evil. And as every detail is unearthed, each seems to match a portion of the legend. Perhaps the most astounding evidence was supplied by an archaeological expedition mounted in 1936. In that year, scientists traveled to Transylvania, to the monastery of Snagov, to Vlad Dracula's grave, in search of the final truth. Today, Snagov is a gloomy place with only traces of its 15th century magnificence. Rich in legend, there are peasants here who say they've seen the ghost of Dracula rising from the lake. Who knows how many prayers and prisoners, famous people, and infamous acts these walls have witnessed through the centuries. Who knows how many secrets lie buried here. Professor Dino Rossetti was among the scientists who made that pilgrimage in 1936 here to Snagov. To this day, he is reluctant to discuss his findings. More than 40 years have passed since I conducted my archaeological work here at Snagov. Tradition said that the grave of Dracula, the grave of Vlad the Impaler, was located here. Here in this part of the monastery, I had the opportunity to examine the grave. There was nothing to indicate that the grave had been disturbed or profaned. When the grave and the coffin were opened, I found that the clothing was well preserved and in quite good condition. A red silk garment with the arms folded across the chest, but to our absolute amazement, the body had completely disappeared from inside the clothes. Only the clothing was there, without a trace of the body. Where is the body of Dracula? The body of the Impaler? The body of the great undead? Truth is an interpretation of facts, whether those facts be real or imagined. To the people of Romania, for the past 500 years, Vlad Dracula has existed as truth. The horrors of history lend credence to his legend. The people meld vampires, demons, and religious beliefs with the legend. The novelist mixes these elements with a fertile imagination and a dramatic flair, et voila, Count Dracula in all his glory. The prince's psychotic, twisted mind served a purpose for the people of Romania against the Turks. And his evil proves to be barbaric only in the light of the knowledge of successive generations. Well, I've told you the facts. It is up to each of you to interpret these facts and determine your own truth. Well, it's dawn already. How the time has flown. Well, I've enjoyed this evening very much. But I'm afraid our little chat must come to an end. Oh, Brimstoke should be back by now. He will show you out. Good morning.
I love to scream.
I like fighting with friends, and I enjoy being scared also.
I came here this weekend to feel my flesh crawl and to get goosebumps and to feel my hair stand on end.
I'm just a gore freak. I write the books, I see the movies, I know the people. You got to be here. This is where it's happening. This is Fangoria in 3D.
Plata, man. The more horrible, the better.
Oh, I'm into fantasy. They're into blood and guts.
Mom hates him. She thinks I'm sick.
A lot of blood and guts and half the body getting ripped apart and stuff like that. I like that kind of stuff.
My parents think I'm crazy.
I think they're kind of gross.
I think some movies have tasteless blood and guts.
That's it. That's what this convention is all about.
And the other ones where you see girls getting hacked up in bed, those are okay.
Blood, guts, seared flesh, open wounds, chop, slice and dice, all of it.
Garden shears. Big ones, sharp ones, long ones.
It's fun. It's fun to be scared silly. It's great.
Ice picks, razor blades.
I want to get into special effects.
Chainsaws, of course. That's classical. That's the Shakespeare of horror movies.
I'm a school teacher.
Engineer.
Computers.
I'm from Pasadena.
Chicago.
Seattle.
Denver.
Ohio.
New Jersey. Hollywood. Horror City, dudes.
It's a release from work. I work at Sears.
I live in El Monte, and we're from a video store down there.
I work in hardware, retail sales.
Good morning, humans, and welcome to the Weekend of Horrors. There are people here from all corners of life. There are, as you can see, look around at yourselves, young, old, male, female, people into splatter and makeup and filmmaking and rock and roll and everything that's in any way related to this field here for 48 hours devoted to the wonderful world of horror. You're a nice-looking bunch of people to be here for something like this. And one thing is certain. You're going to meet some new friends here this weekend who share your special interest in things to do with this field. And you'll have the opportunity, I think, to step outside of your Monday through Friday routine, put on a costume or some makeup, or in some way enjoy living a little bit of a fantasy here this weekend. And I encourage you to do that, to have fun doing it, and to make the most of it. Thanks for coming. Have fun.
Here. And I wanted to see if he's really as ghastly as people say.
Freddy Krueger, right here. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Fred Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street.
We're Fred Krueger fans. This is my Fred Krueger mask. I made it myself, from the sculpting on up. This is my claw.
I was filling in some time off of V, my hiatus from V, went in on a general audition, wanted to work for Wes Craven, and just your basic general audition. I think they wanted someone really large,
sort of big, monolithic in size, absolutely evil for it. And Annette Benson had seen my auditions for Class Reunion, National Lampoon's Class Reunion. She saw my range, and she thought it might be a sort of a wild card idea to bring in for Freddy. And I guess Wes agreed with her, and I got the part.
Dad?
Daddy can't help you now. I need you, Jesse. We got special work to do here, you and me.
It's just been a coincidence that I've been wanted in a science fiction series, which was V, and playing the character of Willie, which was pretty successful. And then Freddy Krueger and the nightmare phenomenon, you know. So that's more a coincidence than anything. I mean, I could play a lawyer tomorrow if somebody asked me, and would be very happy to.
You've got the body. I've got the brain.
Horror films are unique, and even more than, say, Westerns used to be, are a very inexpensive way to make a film. All you need is a tremendous vision, tremendous energy. Texas Chainsaw, Last House, Hills of Eyes, all were films done with a very limited cast in a very, usually a rural location where you don't have to pay a lot of permits. And all you need is a great idea and a lot of vision. You go out there and make something that scares the pants off people.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
The basis of any movie is take your hero and chase him up a tree and then chop down the tree, and a horror picture does that in spades. Other movies sometimes can make this very abstract. You know, they can do it in a philosophical way or in the way the character's life is going. But a horror movie really does it with the fact that the guy chopping down the tree has an axe that he's going to use on you next. So you get very quickly engaged, and I think it's a very immediate, very, very simple form. In that sense, it's classic.
I never set out to be an actor, to sign autographs or drive a Mercedes, but I must confess that I do like the attention. I've never had any problem with the fans. I think it's because I've been both in movies for so long and television that fans either are watching me in an old movie on cable or they've just seen me on something on a guest star, and so when you're in their living room, they kind of treat you like you're one of the family.
I think when I look back on it, I enjoyed my whole life of making up stories that scared my friends. The interesting thing that's happening now, I think really as a result of films like Nightmare on Elm Street, is that we're getting into what I have coined as rubber reality, which is films that deal with the way that reality can be distorted and permeated, going into dream states, in states of madness, and all sorts of strange illusions that haven't been treated in film since Cocteau, I think. And so in that sense, they're becoming less blood and guts and more hallucinatory, which I think is basically what films are anyway.
What, Mother?
They're very, very intelligent fans. They're very into detail. Consequently, I have learned from my fan mail and from talking at the sci-fi conventions that they pay just as much attention to details in my performance. Little physical bits that I might do, elements of the characterization, deliveries, favorite lines. Mostly actors think only other actors see that stuff. But it's really nice when Joe Fan calls you on that or mentions it or mentions some really subtle moment that you didn't think anybody caught in your performance. And they, not only do they remember it, but they bring it up in front of a room full of 500 people. So that's my real treat.
We came down basically to see the convention because we're very much into the special effects makeup and splatter technology that's going on in films today.
I just always loved horror movies all my life and special effects makeup. And
what we're trying to do is just an improvisational makeup because there hasn't been the time to prepare anything particularly along the lines of prosthetics or pre-molded rubber pieces. I've already put a couple little tubes in Tony's nostrils there to distort his nose, and later I'm going to put just something simple like a cotton ball under his lip here and there to get an asymmetrical, crooked look to his mouth.
No, I've never done this. I've been on a couple of cooking shows, but that's very different.
I could hopefully have ourselves a kind of a ghoulish character where Tony once sat, here in front of the bar at the Ambassador.
I do a lot of special effects makeup work, and I was hoping to sort of get a break and meet some people here, which I have. And
yeah, I'd like to learn about it and try it out.
I drew an awfully lot as a kid and tended to amuse myself more with, pencil and so forth rather than being out playing in sports and things. So that interest dovetailed into the movie interest, and when I got older, I found a place in downtown Inglewood, California, where I grew up, where I could get some elementary makeup supplies, and did a little bit of experimenting and kind of got bitten by the bug.
It's basically the same story as everybody else.
We were born strange.
Yes.
Born strange. It starts with the dinosaur phase, doesn't it?
The dinosaur phase.
When you're 6, dinosaurs and Play-Doh, and then...
Famous Monsters.
Yeah, Famous Monsters and Godzilla and Frankenstein.
Dick Smith makeup book.
Right. And then you discover Rick Baker.
I started with an interest in special effects, film, science fiction, horror films when I was really young, when I was around, 10, 11, something in that area. And I've just progressed from there. Done a lot of work at home, read a lot of books. And Rick Baker, who was a Dick Smith protege, he has brought movie monsters to a new state.
I got a chance to see Rick Baker, and she said she'd pay for it, so that's why she came in.
He's one of the best makeup people we got going.
I was simply a kid who was bowled over by horror pictures, but that would be the same thing I think that Rick Baker would tell you.
This is one of the 8 characters from Greystoke. This is one that we called White Eyes, and this is one of his 5 heads. At this point, the mechanism's not working quite well. The rubber's starting to rot. It's an unfortunate thing about what I do is that it only lasts a short time. I started out as a 10-year-old kid who just loved the idea of becoming a makeup artist, and that love for that work drove me on. I mean, I worked very hard to learn my craft. And I think the best thing to do is just to do a lot of it, do as much, any free time that you have, devote to makeup. If you love it that much, you will, and then you get good. I worked with Tobe Hooper on a film called Funhouse. What I did there was just design and sculpt a creature for Toby, and a makeup artist by the name of Craig Reardon applied it. Horror movies seem to have an audience. I mean, people go see a horror movie whether it's good or it's bad. I'm one of those people. I usually go to theaters and see them. I've acted in a few things, usually in costumes, and that's the best way for me. I think it's nicer to be able to hide behind a mask and be on film than have your real face out there. Yeah, I'd be interested in doing some kind of monster or lunatic part or something like that, but typecasting.
really love to be scared. It just feels so incredible to have those goosebumps. And if there's a nice guy with you, to just clutch onto him, you know?
I am blood and guts. That's my whole life.
Santa loves horror films.
In the real world, I was a tax consultant, but I finally figured 30 years doing taxes was long enough, and I sold my business, and I devote whatever working time I have to this damn foolishness. I got involved in this when I was Nichelle Nichols' business manager, and I used to book her into conventions, and I went along with her. And I peddled Leonard Nimoy record albums at the convention. And my Leonard Nimoy albums have grown into my empire.
I came down here, thought I'd drag my dad down here. He's really into this sort of stuff. Thought I'd have him buy me some things.
Well, we both have a mutual interest in things dealing with the supernatural. After all, I have a child who I believe is part demon, and so we have an enthusiasm for monster magazines and monster films, and we've met Rick Baker on a couple of occasions, and Bob Burns is a friend of ours. So we are canvassing the dealer's room, checking out all the items, maybe taking in a couple of lectures, seeing the films they have. All in all, it looks like it's going to be an exciting time. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would say.
Hi, I'm John Buechler, and I just got back from Rome, where I directed my first feature-length motion picture called Troll. It's kind of unusual because I also created all the special makeup effects and creatures in the picture.
Now I got you! Holy shit! No!
There's elements in it that I hope will make people take pause for a moment to look and say, gee, how did they do that? Picked up a copy of Famous Monsters of Filmland, and I was hooked. I love comic books. I love everything there is about fantasy in general.
It's delicious.
I loved Return of the Living Dead. It gave me the opportunity to not be sexy and be more like a punk rocker. And Dan O'Bannon, who wrote Blue Thunder, Alien. Oh, he's wonderful. Oh, God, he's wonderful. He was the best director I've ever had, and that including TV and everything. Sorry, other guys, I'm sorry. But Dan, I love him. He was just absolutely wonderful. He wrote Living Dead, he directed Living Dead, and he was just a wonderful actor's director.
Fear is the only universal emotion. It's the only thing that in which every human being has identically the same reaction to every stimulus, and therefore it's the safest thing for somebody who is new or no good to try. Because you can make a terrible horror movie, but if you push certain basic buttons, you're bound to scare somebody. That includes me. in spite of my over-sophistication of seeing horror movies, you take me in and sit me down in a bad horror movie, it will jolt me. I think horror is a young person's game. It's a very raw kind of stimulus. A child is going to like a hot dog with mustard on it, and he's just going to hate escargot. A grown person is going to be the reverse. I think young people in general are fascinated with the subject of death, and they try to come to grips with it at a fairly early age. And the easiest way to come to grips with it is to make it into a fantasy, either in the form of humor, jokes about death, or in the form of scary stories and scary movies. There have been so many horror movies made now. You start with Frankenstein, Dracula, go way back then. They were pioneering the classic forms. There finally comes a time where you've done it and done it and done it and done it until it's sterile, and you have to start looking for new approaches. I have fun when I'm working. I have fun when I'm glued to the typewriter thinking up creative ideas. The rest of life I simply try to make pleasurable, easy.
Well, I've always made creatures when I was small, and this is my transition from amateur to professional creature making. Right here is the costume that's going to be featured in the costume convention today, Creech.
Happy birthday, dear Boris. Happy birthday.
Back in end of 1957, yes, just when I was having a birthday again in November, I created the first issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. But it grew and grew, and now I have an 18-room home, 300,000 books and magazines and paintings and props from movies. The majority of the rooms in that 18-room house are dominated by 18,000 lobby cards and 36,000 hardcover books, 125,000 stills. In October 1926, I saw the first fantastic magazine ever came to my attention. It was called Amazing Stories. Leapt right off the newsstand, grabbed hold of me, said, "Take me home, little boy. You will love me, and if you play your cards right in the far distant exotic year of 1985 at the world-famous Ambassador Hotel, you will find yourself being interviewed by Fangoria magazine." And I couldn't believe it at the time, but it all came true.
Let me put it this way. Jones Quarterly isn't going to be knocking on my door.
There's a real high contrast.
I'm Jenny Aspinall. I do special effects makeup, mostly for television and horror films. I recently finished an independent feature called Street Trash. My first film was Toxic Avenger, which I did special effects makeup for.
Meet little Melvin. He's a 90-pound weakling. Everyone hated Melvin.
I'm gonna take this mop and shove it down your throat.
They teased him.
I'm gonna do it with you. Okay.
They taunted him. They tormented him until he had a horrifying accident and fell into a vat of nuclear waste, transforming little Melvin into a hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength. Melvin became the Toxic Avenger, the first superhero born out of nuclear waste. Yes, the muggers and the rapists didn't know what law and order was until the Toxic Avenger came to town.
Holy shit!
I don't know what it was, but it saved my life.
All right, everybody, drop your tacos or I'll blow your brains out.
The vandals and the perverts had their way with the little people of Tromaville until the Toxic Avenger ripped them apart. The Toxic Avenger. His face is so terrifying. We can't show it to you now. You'll have to see the movie for yourself. The Toxic Avenger can bend steel with his bare hands.
Oh, we're only kidding. Get it?
Leap small cars in a single bound. He crushes drug pushers. Smashes hit-and-run drivers. And gives all criminals their just desserts. The Toxic Avenger.
He was a hero.
He's a hero. He's a fighter. He's a lover.
Well, Melvin, you're beautiful.
The good citizens love him. The fat and corrupt hate him.
Kill that bastard for me. You gotta kill him.
Yeah? Will he survive? For incredible explosive action, you must see the Toxic Avenger. He's a different kind of hero.
I came to see Elvira.
I like Elvira because she reminds me of Vampirella.
I like her humor. Elvira.
You like Elvira?
Yeah, Elvira. She's bigger than life.
That's a good question. He says, what do I think is the very worst movie I've ever shown on Movie Macabre? That is a good question because everybody says, what's your favorite movie you've ever shown on Movie Macabre? And I go like, my favorite movie? Are you kidding? On Movie Macabre? The worst movie was Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, hands down. Who else have I forgotten? Oh, hello. Yes. What started the idea of Elvira? Well, see, my dad got really horny, and then he jumped on my mother. Hi, you mean you don't know? Who else? Anyone have a disgusting personal question? Yes?
When you bid, please make sure you have money in your pocket. Raise your hand, yell, scream, we'll acknowledge your bids. If you win, come quickly up the stage. We begin with Making of Godzilla 1985. $19 item from Japan. Secreted over here from Japan. Do you have any bids? $1. $1 once. Two. Two once. Five. Five once. $19 item. Five twice. Sold. $5.
We began by running comic book conventions in New York City, as my partner and I have always been graphic arts and fantasy and science fiction fans. And as we developed the shows down through the years, we took a very strong interest in science fiction in the media, particularly in filmmaking.
England has Sir Laurence Olivier. America has Arnold Schwarzenegger. $6 value. Do you have any bids? Five. Five once, five twice. Sold. $5. You get it. I hold in my hands a shooting script to a little movie I call Halloween.
It's a real pleasure for me to be able to say, actually, that my partner Gary and I have been able to take our own fan-oriented loves and interests and turn them into a full-time business, of which we're very proud. And we hope to take creation conventions and develop it further, along with our work with Star-Lord and Fangoria in the years to come. We're very excited for the future.
$10, worth more than that. 10 once, nice item. 10 twice, 12 all the way in the back. 12 once, 13, 14, right? 14. 14 once, 15, 16. 16 once, 17 once, 17 twice, $20. 20 once, 20 twice, sold, $20, right on the eye. But it's nice. It's nice to have hanging out in the house.
I grew up in a house in Connecticut that was built in 1619, the original part of the house. And before my parents bought the house, they were actually warned that not to buy the house because it was haunted. And part of my reason for doing this film was because I believe in it.
Elizabeth. This house knows everything about you. Leave while you can.
No! The question was, what do I prefer, doing something like a Greatest American Hero or a film that's really relatively twisted like this one? I'd much rather do this kind of films. It's more interesting and more fun.
Whatever happened to this uncle?
Oh, he was diving for abalone off of Point Reyes. Got it.
Oops, sorry about that.
There were times on the set where we all felt possessed. There was, there's always excitement when you're working with special effects. You never know exactly what's going to happen when the camera turns, and you just have to be open to kind of think on your feet and improv with the situation.
Come on! Just stop moving, for Christ's sake!
The first film I did was a film called Here Come the Tigers, which was a G-rated comedy, a kids film. And it wasn't a bad little film, but no one went to see it. So we switched over to horror and decided to kill the little buggers instead, and everybody showed up. So that's what happened.
Hi.
What are you doing here?
I wanted to see you. What are you doing with that gun?
Nothing. Sandy.
Just start bugging someone that you know that's in the business for a job. That's what I did. And don't give up, because it's hard. And eventually the survivors, the people that keep trying, will be in the business.
I don't consider my films to be slasher type pictures. I don't know. I'm not one for a lot of bloodletting. Actually, I've had criticism sent my way that my films are not bloody enough or gory enough, and so I guess if I were to deal with it, though, if I were to do it, I would probably do it. Go out, do it. Go all the way with it. I started making horror films, really trying to give people their money's worth. Myself, I was a horror buff, sci-fi fan, and I never. That is when I started with Chainsaw. Before that, I saw very few horror films that worked. That gave me really what I was going to see. I felt cheated a lot. So That's how Texas Chainsaw came about. And it was low budget. That's about as much money as I could scrape together for one more film. So no matter how small the project is, I would advise anyone who wants to direct pictures to get on with it and somehow find a way to do it. If it's on a $15 budget, if it's on a $200 budget, just do it. Because the opportunity probably won't just come your way.
Yes, I have a movie in here, but I'm not sure if I've won.
Meryl and I just flew out here from New York to pick up our award for Angel Lust. And I've been to every one of the Cinemagic Short Film Search Awards.
I'm up for a 16mm project, and I'm nervous about it. I don't know what's going to happen.
Second prize, Super 8.
It's not just for ice cream.
Accept this for the students at North Hills High School who made the film possible. They were the crew and did all the work.
Many people don't know it, but in black and white films, we use Hershey syrup as blood because red photographs as light gray.
Now the film is a puppet animated film. Using three-dimensional puppets, each of my puppets has replaceable mouths for lip sync. 5 replaceable mouths. For example, C, M. And by replacing these mouths and doing a sound breakdown, I have achieved dialogue.
I'll teach you to hide, you silly toothpick. I know I can beat him. If you can beat me, I will clean up. But if you lose, then you sweep up, you silly broom.
You're the prisoner of the Flaming Skull. He owns you now.
Nobody owns Rick Blazin. You'll pay for this, the lot of you.
Not so easily.
The Flaming Skull.
Do I get to kill her now? I can think of better things to do with her.
You can think all you want when you're on the rock pile, Skull. Couldn't we discuss this?
Nothing can stop me.
First prize, Super 8. Welcome to the real world. Night Watch, Mike Steenberg.
My name is Mike Steinberg, and I just won the second place in the 16mm Cinemagic short film search.
I'm really surprised and amazed that I won this award, and I'm really glad I made it out here from Miami. I met Toe Hooper and Carrie Quinn and everybody. I'm totally shocked.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I won third place, Cinemagic Short Film Search. But next year, I'm going to win first, second, and third place. Just you wait and see.
I was raised on Mummy. I was raised on Frankenstein. I was raised on King Kong. I was raised on all of these wonderful, scary, frightening motion pictures. And they are classics today, but to me, when I was a little kid, hiding under the theatrical seat of my little town, they weren't classics. They were living, breathing pieces of entertainment life. And if today, Reanimator, Return of the Living Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street, Whisper to a Scream, all of these films are not considered classics, and they're just considered live, wonderful entertainment. That's not to say that in 10, 15 years they won't be classics.
My first science fiction production there was The Day the World Ended, which I produced and Roger Corman directed. And that sort of started me off in the horror and science fiction field. Then I did pictures like Voodoo Woman and The She Creature, and later on The Atomic Submarine and The Underwater City.
I scored over 180 movies, a little over 300 TV shows, about 400 radio shows. The Amazing Colossal Man, that was one of my bigger ones. And right now it's playing all over TV, thank goodness.
When I see Texas Chainsaw Massacre and seeing Piggy running after these guys and gals, my adrenaline starts pumping, my heart starts thumping, and I almost have an erection. I mean, it's one of the most exciting things that I feel a person can do.
And when we were engaged 28 years ago, I wanted to impress her, so I took her to a special screening of my 6-day, $60,000 epic Voodoo Woman with Marla English, who was American International's Elizabeth Taylor. And afterwards, she gave me back the ring. She said, if that's the kind of a picture you make, I don't think it's going to work out.
Roger Corman saw me working with some other guys in the movie, in the production room. He walked up and said, hey, I got a stinker we just finished. It's so bad, I can't sell it. And the score is terrible. You want to redo it? Well, pay money for it, fine. So we haggled for about 3 or 4 seconds, and we did it, and saved this picture. You have to save the movie.
We have terror, we have beauty, we have ugliness, we have frightening things, we have all kinds of charming things, but all of the things together is what makes a whole person a whole life.
For 7 years I've been teaching courses at USC, the University of Southern California, but that means nothing compared to being a regular contributor to Fangoria. Really, it's you're recognized everywhere if you're a Fango man or a member of the Fango family.
If it doesn't have the blood and guts and the thunder and the rips and the tears and the smashes and the slashes, I'm going to walk out on you.
So the reason I wanted to do the remake to Invaders from Mars is it happened to be one of my favorite pictures. I think that I'm making an homage to William Cameron Menzies' film. I spent a great deal of care recreating the exact images that I know burned holes in my memory from when I was a child. In particular, that fence. I spent days recreating, trying to find the exact angle on that hill and and tweaking the fence so it would be very close to the fence in Menzies' picture. A small figure in the vast, top, a lot of top. It's all shot from the child's point of view. Action! So there's up angles, I mean, there is the isolation of the young boy and trying to get someone to believe him. And I think I've been very true to that theme. Cut! I think my treatment of it, of the remake, is actually it's using the original as a very definite foundation and embellishing it and making it bigger, amplifying it.
What I wanted to do, if possible, would be to create quite a wonderful creature that did not appear to be another man in a suit monster.
He is mankind, developed to its ultimate intelligence.
Then there's also a great deal of articulation mechanics that goes literally just into the animating of the Supreme Being himself, which is his face, his flippers, his eyes, his eyelids, all of the facial movements. He's got these organ-like appendages on his sides which will undulate and pulsate. His veins will be pulsating, so there'll be a lot going on with this particular creature, who is the main bad guy.
Roll camera. Good. Parker. Little Ritter, please. Good. And action. All right, move it. Load that small. Gun! Your sector of fire is 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock!
You don't want to disappoint the audience of the original picture. It's hopefully more exciting and more believable. I mean, hopefully they'll get nightmares.
I love being Fangoria's favorite actor. It makes my day. I mean, I look forward to those copies that have the articles on me and the letters that come in. And I'm very pleased with it. There are people who come into this town and they're here for 4 or 5 years. They may achieve stardom, and or they may not. The very sad ones. They're here 4 or 5 years and they go back to Oshkosh and sell shoes, or maybe it's what you do yourself. Maybe that's why they call it the survival factor. I've been here 30 years, and except for a few lean ones, I've survived. I think being in this town and working at what I love to do makes me a lucky man, yeah.
If I had to explain horror in one word, it's exciting, stimulating.
It's disgusting.
Blood.
Gory. Scary. Suspense.
John Carpenter's The Thing.
Dark.
If it's done well, poetry.
It's fun. That's one word.
No more questions.
People look at me and go, ooh, you're morbid. But no, I'm just weird and I'm having fun.
Green slimy makeup all over my entire body, which ought to be very fun. Fingers about this long, large black nails, stringy black hair, ears out to here.
Yeah, we made these ourselves out of just normal things we found laying around the house.
Well, I'm putting some adhesive on my face so that when I get the mask over my head, I don't have to pull anything aside.
Just decided to do a pumpkin because I had a round enough head for it.
Last week, the drive-in near my house was showing Nightmare on Elm Street. I went in costume, and I started walking around the theater, and people were freaking out. They were seeing me, and when people run from you and scream, you go a little crazy, and you chase them, and it's great.
It's like a stem sticking out of the ball cap, and I'm painted up like a pumpkin. Got a cape and everything, and a big P on my chest.
That's the fun of horror movies. Fear of being scared, but you know you're not going to get hurt.
Just boom.
You humans are so primitive in your means of communication, you still use phones, when all I have to do to go home is...
My favorite part is like the blood coming out of their stomach and out of their eyes, and
you can't be serious.
Absolutely, I like viscera probably more, and the gooey of brain tissues, brain linings are probably better. Blood is too common, everybody does it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen what acid rain can do.
He's mine.
I said I'd be a pumpkin, and I am. And look at this. My pal Squash is with me here at Fangoria. Check it out.
Oh man, too bloody much.
I'm sorry it's over.
Oh, what a time, man.
How can I go back to reality?
Next time I think you should do a month of horrors.
Bye, see you.
See you next time.
Later on, dudes.
Adios.
Fear is the most powerful emotion in the human race, and fear of the unknown is probably the most ancient. So you're dealing with stuff that everybody's felt from being little babies. We're frightened of the dark, we're frightened of what we don't know about. And if you're making a horror film, you get to play with the audience's feelings.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
It's so much about this small but so brilliant spark of the unconscious which constantly wants to break out and say, hey, you know, I have some stuff to tell you which is far more interesting than this surface.
I believe that by and large secrets are destructive and dangerous. I think Spalding Gray says whatever is hidden degenerates. So that a horror film has a tendency to make people face things that they don't want to face, and I think in that sense it's healthy. And in that sense it's very exciting. It's going into the labyrinth for the Minotaur.
When I first go in, there's that wonderful feeling of suspense and anticipation. Is this going to frighten me enough? It's like a kind of hunger.
Same kind of idea as going on roller coasters to make yourself feel sick. Yeah. And it's kind of fun.
Sit down, you watch a film in the dark, on your own space, and you try to endure the next 2 hours of, you know, whatever the film throws at you.
Since the world was young, men and women have sat in the darkness and used their imagination to scare themselves into a cold sweat. We have told ghost stories and created shadow plays. We people dark places with imaginary demons and titillate ourselves by conjuring up our deepest fears. From a quiet voice whispering in the dark to a motion picture costing millions of dollars, the effect seems to be the same. We enjoy the electric jolt of sudden shock and revel in the rush of adrenaline that goes with prolonged and heightened anxiety. In the world of Victorian Gothic fiction, one figure looms head and shoulders above the rest. Edgar Allan Poe is universally acknowledged as the godfather of modern horror, and even today he remains a major source of inspiration.
È stata la prima grande lettura che ho fatto quando ero adolescente. E sono stato anche malato per questo, ho avuto per un sacco di tempo la febbre, come una strana febbre, che mi veniva da questi racconti, perché ero molto piccolo, avevo 10 anni, 11 anni quando li ho letti. Però penso che la stessa impressione ha fatto a molte altre persone. Terribile, anche crudele. E raccontare in realtà il mostro che è intorno a noi e dentro di noi, senza il realismo, ma raccontando il profondo, raccontando la nostra...
No, not the gun! I want to see your face again!
No matter how things change, our fears remain fairly constant. Our fears of death and dying, of pain and suffering, of cruelty, and above all, our fear and terror connected with the unknown. These are the things that Poe deals with, and deals with effectively, sometimes too effectively for comfort.
What Poe had done with fiction was quickly taken up by cinema, and in the 20s and 30s, European filmmakers peopled their work with the stuff of their own folklore, demons, werewolves, and vampires. From his very first appearance, the vampire has had an enduring hold on our imaginations. This, in turn, has thrown up a bewildering range of theories to account for his popularity.
fear and dread are so highly sexual. And the vampire is so romantic. He's all about obsession at the same time, which is full of all this incredible energy and focus and attention. And this feeding, you know, all these glorious metaphors, which are all cloaked in this, in these wonderful gestures and ambience.
You've got this tall, dark, usually handsome stranger, played by Christopher Lee, who penetrates the woman, who is usually a young, pretty, virginal sort of woman, in a very vulnerable part of the body, in this case happens to be the neck, after which he owns her. She becomes his. Forevermore. It's quite clearly a seduction metaphor.
And this kind of grief, this sense of tragedy that he has about him, which is very attractive because women feel in his solitude that somehow that they can save this dark soul, you know. There is something very private about a vampire in his dark isolation, and there's something very moving about that too.
I think it's very significant that Dracula was written by a man who eventually died of syphilis because he couldn't get laid within his marriage. Certainly there's a feeling of sexual frustration that builds up within many classical ideas of the vampire myth. Currently, there is a wave, and I imagine this will be the great boring cliche of the 80s and 90s, is the AIDS vampire story. The idea of vampirism as a metaphor with a kind of the predatory sexuality or the spread of sexual disease.
They represent a triumph over death. While people dread them, at the same time, I think, have a certain secret envy of the fact that a vampire never dies. And this is connected with the mystery of death itself, and therefore exerts an endless fascination.
If the vampire has a timeless appeal, then each age, too, seems to have its own specific horror, one that embodies prevalent threats and fears.
At the time of the Cold War and nuclear anxieties leading up to the Cuban Missile Crisis, we have a lot of films about the effects of atomic radiation, making ants or huge, or bringing dinosaurs back from their frozen ice age. But also lots of films which reflect both the fear of communism and the fear of McCarthyism. Films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Invaders from Mars. These are the movies about dehumanization, about the kind of sinister things that perhaps lurk under the apparent normality of the American way of life.
In the 70s, we went swimming and were attacked by sharks and piranhas. We put a down payment on a house and the walls dripped blood. We took a canoe trip and got raped and murdered by retarded hillbillies, killer bees, killer fish, killer bears, and killer rats. We seemed to be afraid of everything.
The question asked by all 70s films is the same as that old thing you saw in annuals as a kid, where they'd show you a picture of a small town and then ask you, what's wrong with this picture? That's basically what all of the really good 70s horror movies do. They show you America and then ask you what's wrong with it. That's why we have the small town in Halloween, which harbors the mad killer. That's why we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's why we have The Exorcist.
In 1974, The Exorcist was the biggest grossing horror film of its time. Still, today, it cannot be shown on British television, even in clip form. Was its extraordinary impact really just a sign of the times?
I don't believe that the mood of the times had anything whatever to do with the success of The Exorcist. I think it would have been successful at any time. At any time. Because, why? Because since the beginning of time, we have been concerned about these eternal questions. The nature of good and evil. Does God exist? Does the devil exist? How do we explain certain horrible things that happen to innocent people?
In the weeks following the film's release, there was nothing short of exorcist hysteria. The tabloid press all over the world had a field day. With that kind of hype, the filmmaker's job was already half done.
I was anticipating the feeling before I sat down and watched it, so I was already scared. You know, I knew I was going to feel scared. When you know you're going to be scared, you start being scared anyway, for no particular reason. You know, I was absolutely terrified.
I don't think it was that frightening a film, but, you know, I'd built it up in my own mind to such an extent that I was quite nervous about watching it.
If you're walking down a dark street at night, okay, and you heard that there was a murder on that street, you're going to be frightened while you're walking down the street. If you haven't heard there's a murder on the street, you probably won't be frightened. To a large extent, The Exorcist worked that way. By the time the first week was over, word got around that it was like walking down a street where there had been a crime. People were scared before they got into the theater.
Basic logic would suggest that being frightened or disgusted is something we would instinctively avoid rather than standing in line to pay for the experience. So why do we subject ourselves to this ordeal?
What a horror film then does is not frighten so much as release fright. It is a vent, and that all these fears are in us all the time, from our lives, from our youths, from the world at large, from everything from the most complex societal things of waging war and class struggle to very simple primal things like fear of father and mother and fear of abandonment as a child. So these are all inherent in us, and civilization tends to gloss them over, encapsulate them, deny them. It teaches us a thousand ways to act like everything's fine, but underneath the surface is this sort of cauldron. So what a horror film does is tap in and release that tension. And it does it in a way that's entertaining, amusing, exciting, and safe.
You can go out and get like a cheap thrill, and you're not going to catch AIDS from it, or the clap, you know, or probably not any permanent or lasting damage.
When we detect a threat in the environment, our brain activates the glandular system to produce chemicals into the blood, such as adrenaline and noradrenaline. And these have a variety of effects, such as increasing heart rate, respiration. They give us sweaty palms, pallor, butterflies in the stomach, perhaps dilation of the pupils, and usually connected with raising of the eyebrows and opening of the eyes, which is to increase your visual acuity, so you take more in of the environment, and that will help you solve the threat. But some people go the other way, and they will actually either block off their eyes physically, because it's something so horrible they don't want to see it, or their pupils will constrict so as to close it out.
Your heart beats faster. Your breathing comes more drawn and deliberate. And it's a very involving experience. You can actually feel it physically. And I find that very, very enjoyable and quite exhilarating.
Your heart just pounds, your hairs prickle up on the back of your neck, and you get like tingling sensations running through you.
My stomach would just close up when I see this really scary movie. I'd like pick my feet up off the ground, and I'd clutch the sides of the seats, and I'd just be sitting there like just rigid with fear.
You sit there and you confront the source of your fear, and you don't actually run away from it, because you look a bit silly running up the center aisle or clambering over the person next to you. You sit there and suffer it, hopefully, if you don't cover your eyes, that is. And ultimately, you are better placed to cope with that fear should it happen to you in real life.
Nowadays, if you see a horror film, you go into school and tell your friends about all the best bits, like, oh yes, his arm came off. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it's all to do with, you know, telling friends and boasting.
Yeah, and they'll want to see the film then. And there are people who don't like horror films. If you boast to them about what you've seen, they can't watch it. It makes you sort of feel more sort of manly, like. I suppose it's like smoking cigarettes and it makes you feel tough, and watching horror films makes you feel tough.
The posters that you see of horror films is like, can you take this? You know, this is the nastiest, grossest thing you've ever seen. And yeah, sure, people go because they want to say, yeah, I can take it. Yeah, show me it, I can take it.
I think the audiences that enjoy horror movies or being scared are usually younger, and they are coming to grips with a lot of fears of their own. They're maturing, they're becoming adults, they're either going through puberty or they're getting to be teenagers or in their 20s. And in a sense, it's an emotional roller coaster. And you get to experience a lot of the things that are going on inside of you and get them out, actually exercise them.
At the start of the 50s, the horror movie was deliberately marketed to teenage audiences. Movie houses offered the teenagers something that was quite unique, the kind of privacy they couldn't find at home. It became clear that the horror movie was an ideal background for couples who wanted to get better acquainted over the popcorn.
I think what's fun about being in a horror movie with my boyfriend is that there's this terrible feeling of being utterly exposed to fear and being completely vulnerable, which I think, then again, is a sexual thing.
That's a time when boys pretty much get excited, I guess. It gives them the opportunity for a girl to get close more, I don't know.
I think that they know that a girl wants to grab onto them.
Right.
And just last Friday, I went to Sleeping with the Enemy with a boyfriend, and I could see that he was sitting up higher in his chair, and we got out of the film, and I screamed the whole way through, and he came out of the film like piece of cake, you know, no big deal. And the whole time I was grabbing onto his arm, he probably has claw marks.
The introduction of television forced the industry to desperate lengths to push its product. William Castle's pitch for Macabre in 1958 included ensuring the audience with Lloyd's should any of them die of fright. And for the first run of The Tingler, some cinema seats were wired to deliver a mild electric shock.
I am William Castle, the director of the motion picture you're about to see. I feel obligated to warn you that some of the sensations, some of the physical reactions which the actors on the screen will feel will also be experienced for the first time in motion picture history by certain members of this audience. At any time you are conscious of a tingling sensation, you may obtain immediate relief by screaming.
But gimmicks are just that. Their impact on an audience quickly wears thin. The real masters of cinema have their own ploys to hold an audience enthralled.
One classic technique is to create a sense of threat for the audience, no matter what you use. Sometimes it's music, situation, lighting, whatever it may be, all the tools that you would use to say something bad is about to happen. Then what you do is throw in a false threat, something, a terrible sound, which the audience, it's a cat, it's a leaf fell, a twig broke, an object fell off the thing, or a door creaked, or it was a click, or whatever. Nothing. The audience says, oh, pow! Then you hit them. That just knocks the shit out of everybody.
However, there was another breed of filmmaker who preferred to shock the audience by pushing out the boundaries of taste.
I recall a movie back in the early 60s before the culture changed, when we were still living in the 50s in America. There was a film called Blood Feast by Herschel Gordon Lewis, which was maybe the first splatter movie, pulling tongues out and just grotesque violence. I saw it when I was a teenager, and it was very disturbing. But he did it because the country was so conservative, because he wanted to slap us in the face and say, you know, look at this stuff.
Blood Feast may have been the first splatter movie, but it wasn't to be the last.
Like, if I hear on the street, like, yeah, there's a good one out where, like, people are losing their heads, I won't go see it because of that. But if I hear it's got, like, it's, you know, well-made and it's got good plot in it, then I'll go see it. But I don't think blood and gore attracts people to movie theaters.
I tend to enjoy horror films with lots of gore and blood all over the place, such as Toxic Avenger, where some weight trainer gets a load of weights smashed through his head.
Some people seem to look at me in disbelief when I can sit there and eat my dinner in front of a film that's having somebody's brain eaten, as in bad taste, or one of the ultimate gore films like that, or Society. I can actually eat in front of it, and people tend to look at me and think I'm very strange because they can't really stomach it.
In the 70s, while each video nasty vied to be nastier than the last, one film broke free from the pack and set a new standard.
In 1976, I saw a film that I thought went right up to the line of taste, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It rode the taste line that separates something unspeakably awful from something that you can handle. And I recall after I saw it, I went to sleep and I slept like a baby because it sort of pacified my soul. I was able to go down to the depths of human depravity and come out and not really be damaged by it. And that's a movie for its time, I think, that worked perfectly well.
The first time you see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you think, oh my God, you know, this is terrible, this is completely unbearable and awful. It's the most gruesome, graphic, gory thing I've ever seen. But the second time you see it, you really wonder if you're seeing a cut version of it. And I think what has happened there is you've imagined all sorts of things in your mind, which you thought were in the film, but actually they weren't there at all. So the film isn't all that graphic and gory, but it's extremely suggestive.
I've always felt that suggestion is a much more effective way of evoking fright than the explicit. Because after all, ketchup is ketchup, and if you leave that sort of image to the imagination, it will come up with a much more spicy specimen.
The old argument that if you didn't show it, you know, people would just imagine something worse. Well, that's the very point. That's exactly why you show it. Take an example in the works of David Cronenberg. How do you imagine the vaginal slit that appears in the middle of Max Wren's stomach in Videodrome off screen? I mean, it's very difficult to see how that's worked out. I mean, I suppose you could have somebody come on and sort of just simply describe it in a shocked look, you know, but you need to see those things. I have no patience with the sort of 1950s style of movie in which, you know, in the first hour you see a footprint, in the second hour you see, you see a claw, and in the last 5 minutes you see the creature before it's destroyed by an atom bomb. I mean, I have no interest in that idea of showing monsters. Monsters seem to me to be the thing I go to a movie to see. Actually, at the beginning of Hellraiser, I'm almost showing some of the worst stuff that happens in the entire movie within the first 2 minutes of the movie. And what happens, I hope, is that by the end of the picture, by the time you get to the climax, actually, of both Nightbreed and Hellraiser, your familiarity with the beast, your familiarity with the strange creatures, allows you to assess them in a different way.
In Hellraiser, when you first see the Cenobites, your initial reaction is, oh God, they're awful. But as they're more on screen, you actually build up like a feeling with them. You identify with them, yeah. And you actually feel that Pinhead is quite a sad character. He's not, you know, a wicked evil man. There's something there that's made him like that.
I certainly get a lot of letters from people who think that Pinhead in Hellraiser, for all his strange disfigurements, is sexy, endearing. There are more things going on, in other words, in these kind of strange disfigurements and changes than simply saying, oh, this is disgusting, this is repulsive.
I think there's a line in movies the audience is frightened you're going to cross, that you're going to show them something that they can't stand, that they can't take. And they're very fearful of that. They don't want to see something that's going to really hurt them badly, because they'll get angry and they'll leave your film and they won't get anything else from it. They'll defend themselves against what they're seeing. You have to always play that line very carefully with audiences. And you have to go up to it. If you cross it, I think you lose them, and you lose them badly.
No, I don't understand people who go to horror films and keep their eyes shut at the worst bits, because that's the whole point. Because the most terrifying the moment is, the more I want to keep my eyes open, because it's exciting.
I really try and be scared, because I believe that a good horror film should hypnotise you into watching it, so you can't turn it off. You're just sort of like stuck with the film.
More than any other genre, horror has had to struggle to stay ahead of the changing tastes and sensitivities of its audience. This has brought it into regular conflict with the censors. In the 50s, it was horror comic books that took the brunt of the attacks. In that era of McCarthyism, horror comics were seen by their detractors as nothing less than a plot to corrupt the youth of a free world.
These comic book covers that you are seeing here are a sample of what the children of the United States are reading today.
One of the wonderfully appealing things about children is that they haven't yet come to the age where reality and unreality are divorced. The emotional impact of something they read in a comic book may be much the same as a real-life situation they witness. Horror and crime comics upset kids. You can see the tension develop as the story gets more gruesome. And if it's a bad one, the kid has a mass of jangled nerves by the time he's through it. You want to give me your name, son?
David Freeman.
And how old are you?
11.
Tell me how comic books make you feel, Dave.
Well, they don't make me feel too good. A couple of times I read a comic book, I threw up.
There are certain scenes I wouldn't want to do in a film. If you combine sexuality and say, a horror film, you have to be very careful, because you don't want to promote behavior in people. But that's an unfortunate problem that we find, too, is that a lot of people watch these movies, begin to imitate it. You have to be aware of that. People will go to a movie, and if they're disturbed, and whatever they see, whether it's a comedy, or whether it's a Western, or whether it's a horror movie, they will incorporate some of that into their thinking. I had a telephone call about 6 months ago from a guy who wanted to meet the Shape from Halloween. And the secretary told him it was an actor. He said, no, I want to meet the guy, Michael Myers. I want to meet the character who's killed all these people. So the difference between fantasy and reality in this guy's mind was a very thin bridge. If you decide, look, the story needs this, I have to do it, then you've got to go ahead and do it, to be aware of the consequences.
The debate about the effects of horror entertainment is further complicated by the way life and art seem to mirror one another. From the time when Jack the Ripper prowled the narrow streets of London's East End, any series of spectacular murders has been guaranteed to spawn a slew of books and movies. So what is it about the psychopath that captures our imagination?
I believe that the horror of the serial killer can be capsulized in one phrase. He could be the person standing next to you.
On November the 17th, 1957, police entered the home of reclusive farmer Edward Gein and discovered a playpen of horror beyond the imaginings of any Hollywood nightmare. Severed limbs and organs were preserved in jars, and there were masks made from the faces of women.
As I recall, there were a number of reactions that remain vivid in my memory to this day when the crimes were perpetrated in Plainfield, Wisconsin. They varied from utter horror to complete disbelief, because at that time the mass murderer, the serial killer, was a somewhat unknown quantity in our society.
If a farmer, the trusted figure from the American heartland, could be a psychopath, then anyone could, and it was this fact that inspired a new style of horror story. With Psycho, the horror film came of age. Even Saul Bass's original storyboards clearly demonstrate the care that went into maximizing the impact of the legendary shower sequence.
People were generally unprepared for what they were about to see, and when they did see it, they were unprepared to deal with it. During the early showings, I found that it was better to use earplugs if possible, because there's such an amount of screaming going on that it was quite unnerving to me.
It scared the hell out of me, and it still does. I've seen it recently, and it's still a wonderful experience. I guess it gets at certain primal fears. It single-mindedly goes after the audience and finally wrests you to the ground. I mean, it still has that power.
In the United States, since 1977, serial killings have risen enormously. And something's going on.
As the list of real-life psycho killers grew longer, they also seemed to be invading our fantasies. By the late 70s, the psychopath movies had virtually taken over the horror genre, and almost invariably their victims were marginally wayward suburban American teenage girls.
One of the common shortcomings of horror films or genre films can be that they are sort of stringent moral tales, whereby if you have sex, you'll die. If you smoke dope, you'll die. If you do something that your parents tell you not to do, you'll die.
The Michael Myers films, as I call them, Halloween, you get the promiscuous teenagers, and because they've been a bit naughty, they have to die. That's very sort of blunt prudery, if you like. But I don't think it's even that. It's a director or a writer setting up a situation that somebody has to be killed. A little bit of sex there just to make it a bit more interesting for the audience, you know, and then they're wiped out. I don't think there's any conscience there. It's not as well thought through as you might think. It just isn't.
Oh, shit. When are human beings most vulnerable? You take off your clothes, go to the bathroom, get in the shower, or you're making love with someone. Sexual situations. That's when you don't have any armor on. That's when you're not thinking about what's going on. It's just an obvious choice.
I had a couple in a book years ago who went into the woods to make love, and both were married to different people, and these people were destroyed mid-act. But that wasn't me saying, you know, they have to be damned because they're up to no good. That is just an interesting scenario for me. There they were in the woods, and they were surrounded by these beasts. What better way to go?
I think that our culture has got a really strange kind of ambivalence about female sexuality. We desire what we hate, or we hate what we desire, you know, because, because there's this element of fear in what we desire, because what will it do? Maybe it'll annihilate us.
Even this kid, oh God.
nella bellezza del fisico della donna, anche non quando non è bellissima, ma nella sua femminilità c'è qualcosa di così profondo, di così insondabile che mi affascina e voglio conoscerlo, voglio capirlo.
What made Freddy Krueger unique among his contemporaries was that he killed both the boys and the girls of Elm Street. He was an equal opportunities killer.
It's not as easy to terrify or horrify the reader or the viewer with some simple act of understandable violence. It has to be something superhuman, Freddy Krueger, that type of embodiment of evil, in order to really register an impact.
Who are you?
Freddy represented sort of, in one sense, the bad karma of the parents. The parents had done something illegal, immoral, and when the result of that came back on them, that is, when this man started coming into their children's nightmares, instead of forthrightly saying, we did something horrible, they acted like they didn't know what they were talking about. And worse, they acted like their kids were crazy.
Fred Krueger, Mom. Fred Krueger. Do you know who that is, Mother? Because if you do, you better tell me, because he's after me now.
Nancy, trust your mother for once, please. You'll feel better when you get some sleep.
I think that is something that's not so far from what society does when it says, for instance, rock and roll is crazy. The kids must be crazy. I don't know what's wrong with this generation. They're so wild. But the generation is really rebelling against what the society has set up as living conditions or as the way things are.
Freddy quickly turned from monster to hero, a kind of grotesque James Dean figure, a subversive movie idol complete with merchandising, for a generation raised on Thatcherism and Sid Vicious.
The Nightmare on Elm Street films, the character Freddy. I mean, when that first came out, how anyone could ever sympathise with a character like that. But the amount of people, his popularity is phenomenal. You know, T-shirts, everything you can get. You know, they've got their own show in America now, Freddy's Show, and the kids are going mad on him.
But it kind of got messed up when they kept on making another one. Because after the second one, at least people wanted to see another one because the first one was so good. And the third one, people were kind of tired of seeing the same guy come back to the same children. And their kids. It was kind of stupid. If you have Freddy and then Jason, there's 8 of them. Yeah, Friday the 13th, and he goes to New York. Next he's going to L.A., and then he's going to Japan, you know. He's on tour.
Nightmare on Elm Street, you just realize that it couldn't happen in a true story that was made into a horror film. Those are the worst ones, because you can never say, oh, that wasn't real, and you can never block it out of your mind. It's always there.
Based on real-life multiple murderer Henry Lee Lucas, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, reached a new level of realism by leaving the fantasy of Elm Street and portraying the mundane world of the psychopath.
Horror film means certain types of films with monsters and fantasy, et cetera, where we try to go back to the root of the word, you know, horror. How do we, if this is a horror film, then its intent must be to horrify its audience. And so we tried to think how best to horrify an audience, and we chose a device, and the device we chose was realism.
You kill that high school boy, they're going to slap your ass right back in jail, Otis. That's a promise. I mean, people have seen you together.
I'd still like to kill him, though.
I bet you would.
I'd like to kill somebody.
Say that again.
I'd like to kill somebody.
Must mean you go for a ride, Otis.
Down in our hearts, we know that these are people doing this, slaughtering people. And the question is why? What's happening? Why is it going so crazy now? Why does human life have so little value? That's a very frightening idea.
Sorry we wasted your time. Come on, Otis.
Don't give me sorry, you dumbass. Did I stutter? Give me the $50 and get out!
It was just like a little gate
emotional gate that, you know, you have this urge that rises up, and there were times that urge arose in me that I could have just like jumped up and beat someone to death over, you know, a traffic altercation or something. But of course you don't. I mean, most human beings don't. But there are those of us that are through birth or through the unfortunateness of their circumstance in life, as if we're to believe what Henry has said about his life, sort of either we're born without that little gate that prevents you from crossing that line, or else it just gets worn away. We showed a family being slaughtered in what we felt to be a very realistic and ugly fashion. It was to say, okay, this is probably what it's really like, and it's very sort of small and ugly and repulsive and sickening. Here's violence and murder as it probably really might look like, and it's not at all entertaining. It's just totally sickening.
What are you doing?
I think we're now getting into the era of movies like Blue Steel, where we're worried about stockbrokers. Yeah, I think that's perhaps the next big wave, as is represented by, for instance, Sleeping with the Enemy, or Bret Easton Ellis' novel American Psycho. These are about what's wrong with rich people. We aren't talking about the marginalized Jasons and Michael Myers and Freddys here, the guys who've always been in the gutter and are fighting back. We're now talking about psychos in designer clothes. Yeah, psychos who make more money than you and I will ever see, doing absolutely nothing, and then spend their nights killing people.
It was no longer good enough for the fictional serial killer to be mindlessly homicidal. He or she was expected to have a personality. Silence of the Lambs broke box office records, mainly due to the depth of its central character, the urbane and evil genius, Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter.
You know who he is, don't you? Tell me who decapitated your patient, Doctor.
All good things to those who wait.
With characters like Freddy Krueger and Hannibal Lecter pushing the limit of horror in one direction, and cinema technology now being capable of graphically simulating the most gruesome of details, the question has to be asked, where can horror movies go from here?
I believe that there will always be new and novel ways to dismember and gore out a body. I do think that it starts losing a lot of its shock appeal. And I believe that there is a great audience for the more surreal forms. And I think that Nightmare on Elm Street did a great deal to advance that. If you'll remember the scene in Nightmare on Elm Street where the girl picks up the telephone and Freddy's tongue sticks into her mouth. Well, that's surrealism. It's not EC Comics. You're talking plastic reality here.
On a creative level, special effects can provide more than just the ability to portray blood and gore. They can make the impossible possible and bring to life anything the filmmaker can imagine.
The role of special effects, I think, has really grown dramatically in the last 10 years, perhaps. I believe that it has to do with what I call the invasion of the rubber guys. What they are doing is exploiting certain materials that have been developed to a great degree in the past 10 or 15 years, specifically methacellulose, foam latex, and certain types of acetate applications. In society, there's definitely an attempt to shock the audience, to really push it to the limit and see how far we could go with a fairly limited bag of tricks. I enjoy shocking an audience. I think it's a lot of fun.
Well, son, I guess you're right. I am a butthead. Hey, Bill.
If special effects are the reason to make a movie, the tail is wagging the dog. And, you know, it's the wrong way around. But I also love being in the company of a bunch of special effects guys with that gleam in their eye that says they've had a new idea and they know a new way of turning someone inside out through their rectum. And they can do it all in one shot for you, Governor. I mean, that's a joy.
as the roller coaster becomes increasingly more violent and outrageous. At times, it seems that there is an unnatural conspiracy between filmmaker and audience to build a better nightmare. Is it a dangerous and self-indulgent game, or are we just soothing our fears by having fun with them?
You get to experience all this carnage or whatever bad stuff the perpetrator is perpetrating, and to sort of revel in it. But they're punished in the end, so you can feel morally responsible, and then that the world is a safe place and there is sense in the universe.
Die. Son of a bitch!
And wouldn't we sort of like to believe that some of the things that happen in horror fiction were plausible, even though the consequences of them may be terrible within a particular drama? It might nevertheless be rather reassuring to know that the devil existed, because then, by extension, so would God. It might be rather reassuring to know that zombies can indeed break in through the French windows, because, well, at least there's life after death.
I consider movies today to be the equivalent of sitting around the campfire and telling stories, 1,000, 2,000 years ago. It's no different. We have to tell our stories, and we have to tell them to each succeeding generation, which is why we all get a chance to make movies if we'd like, because there's always a new group to tell the same old stories to.
When the end credits go up, there's a feeling of almost like a real high. It's like having a terrifying dream, but when you wake up, it's, I can tell people about it, this is great. If I can go through this and I can tackle anything, if I can go right down to what's frightening me, right deeply in my unconscious, then I feel like I've conquered something.
After I've seen a horror film, I usually really do tend to feel relieved and sort of thankful that it's finished. But I go back and see horror films again, because I like horror films.
When you come out of the film afterwards, even if it did scare you and have you on edge, you say, that film got me, I enjoyed that. So you go back and do it again.
There's always sort of a feeling of relief when you're done watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it's over and, it's done with.
Scary movies give you like a whole new mood. When you leave the theater, you just feel so much more relaxed.
I've never read or seen anything that I regretted afterwards. I think that people can take anything. That your capacity to receive fear is absolutely huge, and that horror films so far have only just touched on it. I'm waiting for something more.
Thank you.